Part 7. The favorite of the Nongmen group, the female supporting role is a full-level boss. Author, Ruan Meng Baobao. Chapter 61. A group of men stayed in the boat, cautiously looking out. They saw Suwan standing at the pier waiting for them, each of them so anxious that their toes could dig a hole in the board of the ship. Chi was so anxious that he scratched his head. "Boss Chi, what should we do? Miss is waiting for us outside." Chi Guang was sweating hotly, and the glistening sweat flowed into his eyes, making them red. The embarrassed side was the last thing Suwan wanted to see. Just. His brows were furrowed, and his gnarled hand grasped his right leg. Remembering Suwan's appearance when he was dressing his wound, he gritted his teeth and planned to go out. Chi-san said dejectedly, "My lady used to dislike us for smelling like sweat. Now that we are carrying sacks for others and doing such a low-level job, will she think that we are embarrassing her?" As soon as he said these words, Chi Guang's feet seemed to be nailed to the ship's plank, unable to move another half-step. The atmosphere in the boat suddenly condensed. A tall man stood slumped on the spot, looking like an eggplant beaten by frost. General Chi's only last wish was not to let go of Suwan. Suwan didn't want to see them, but they respected her from the bottom of their hearts. What they were most afraid of was that Suwan would insult them, lose the blood and iron heart of a soldier, and lose the face of General Chi. You've all finished your work, why don't you get out of the boat?" Suwan got off the boat and looked at the dejected group of people with a smile like a flower. They are all simple and honest people, and all their thoughts are written on their faces. You don't need to guess at all to know what they are thinking. She felt sour and astringent in her heart, and her eyebrows curled up. "I bought 2 barrels of sour plum soup. The sun is shining brightly outside. If you wait around for a while, the cold air will dissipate, and you won't be able to quench your thirst." Everyone looked at Suwan in shock, as if they had seen a ghost. Such a kind girl is, their young lady. Instead of scolding them, she invited them to drink sour plum soup. A group of rough guys, all with red eyes and looking like they had done something wrong, looked at Suwan cautiously. Can they really drink it? The corners of Chi Guang's mouth trembled, and he couldn't help but raise them. Smiling, he suddenly raised his hand and wiped his eyes, not sure whether it was to wipe away the sweat or the heat from the bottom of his heart that reached his eyes. "Let's go. You old men are grinding away like girls," Chi Guang shouted in a thick voice, striding out and tearing the wounds on his legs, but he didn't care. Everyone else followed Chi Guang and walked out of the boat. Suwan hurried to the dock and served them sour plum soup. Everyone was holding a bowl of sour plum soup, and the slightest bit of coolness penetrated into their hands. They saw Suwan's soft eyebrows and smiling lips filling the soup, and their hearts felt hot. After taking a sip, the cool and refreshing sour plum soup dissipated the heat in their bodies and made them feel comfortable. "There's still more in the bucket. You've finished drinking. If you haven't had enough, do it yourself." Suwan saw Chi Guang standing far away. She brought a bowl of sour plum soup over and put the bowl into his hand. "You don't have to save money to give it to me, Hua, I have money in my hand." Afraid that Chi Guang wouldn't believe it, she said with all her heart, "I saved Zhao Wei and he bought medicine for his injuries, and I can make a lot of money. Does the Xinglan Medical Center in this town know about it? Half of it is mine. Does Ziwixi Anglu know? And almost half of it is mine." Chi Guang's eyes widened, but he didn't expect that the little pity he thought was living a happy life. He stared blankly at the Jingchai cloth skirt she was wearing, his brows furrowed so tightly that he could kill a fly. "I don't pay much attention to what I wear. I can't help but feel comfortable." Suwan touched the wooden hairpin on her head. Unexpectedly, her dress made Chi Guang misunderstand that she was having a bad life. There was a warmth in her heart, remembering Fang Weivuy's hands being cut off, and she said gratefully, "Thank you for helping me eliminate hidden dangers." The favorite of the Nongmen group, the female supporting role is a full-level boss. Author, Ruan Meng Bao Bao. Chapter 62. Qi Guang was stunned, a little confused. What hidden dangers should be eliminated? Suddenly, I was shocked. Could it be that the young lady knew that he had taken action against Sujihong? He scratched his beard and said with a guilty conscience, "He treated you like that. I couldn't bear to take this breath, so I took a breath for you." Suwan smiled. It was really Qi Guang. The big men who had quenched their thirst at the side all gathered around, fearing that Suwan would blame Qi Guang, and explained to her, "Miss, don't blame Boss Qi. We secretly came to the dock to carry sacks without telling him. He couldn't resist us, so he joined us. Let's carry it together. We have failed General Qi's high hopes. You can do whatever you want with us." Each of them stood as straight as a green pine, waiting for Suwan to punish them. Suwan tilted her head and asked doubtfully, "Why should we deal with you? You make a living with your own hands and don't steal or rob. What's so shameful about it? Grandfather won't blame you, nor will he think that you have ruined his reputation. You are strong men and flesh and blood people who need to survive." A group of people burst into tears. Suwan couldn't help but think of what Qi Guang said at that time, "There is no way to serve the country, and the ambition is unfulfilled. I don't know what happened to make them live in such a miserable state. It's noon, you guys come with me to Ziwixianglu." Suwan was thinking about what to say during dinner later. Everyone looked at Qi Guang and hesitated. Qi Guang frowned and wanted to refuse. "If you refuse, you don't regard me as one of your own." Suwan said this with a straight face. The group of rough guys perked up and waved their hands. "Let's go, follow you." Suwan raised the corners of her lips, "That's pretty much it?" The group of people headed towards Ziwixiang Tower in a mighty manner. Suwan walked to the back of the team, picked up an honest man who was not good at words, and started to talk in a formal way. "Didn't my grandfather make arrangements for you after his death?" "And, it's arranged." Qi Shizhen didn't expect Suwan to talk to him, so he said nervously, We will follow you, and when you get married to the prince, we will become his subordinates and serve him." Suwan saw 13's lonely expression and remembered something. It was the original owner who drove them away. "Where do you live?" "Green." 13. Qi Guang's rough voice interrupted the conversation between the two. When Qi Shizhen saw Qi Guang's serious look and a straight face, he immediately fell silent. Suwan frowned and looked at this group of people thoughtfully, feeling that they were hiding something from her and were in a particularly bad situation. She walked up to Qi Guang and said in a clear voice, "I was ignorant before, please forgive me, Uncle Qi. My grandfather has assigned you to me, so just follow me." Qi Guang felt happy, but he pursed his lips as he thought about his wanted arrest. Looking at Suwan's clear and firm eyes, he hesitated and said, "I." Suwan knew without guessing that he was going to refuse, so she interrupted him, "Don't rush to answer. In 3 days, you can go to Zinglin Medical Center to give me the answer." When the group arrived at Ziwixiang building, Suwan arranged for them to go to the private room upstairs and cook for them personally. After having enough wine and food, Qi Guang left with his brothers. Suwan watched them leave, and everyone remained silent during the dinner, refusing to say a word. She mentally planned to investigate them so that she could find the right solution and persuade Qi Guang to submit to her without any worries. She went to Zinglin Medical Center to prepare wound medicine, and left early after finishing her work at Ziwixiang building in the evening. Qi Jiajan's people were wearing straw sandals that were almost worn out, and she planned to buy a pair of cloth shoes for each of them. Suwan stepped out of the restaurant, and a carriage stopped quietly at the door. The curtains of the carriage were opened, revealing a clear and beautiful face. She raised her eyebrows, got into the carriage, and asked Gu Huizi, "Why are you here?" Gu Huizi's eyebrows were sparse. "On the way." Suwan said, "I won't go home first, Fang Wuxian will be taught a lesson. I have to buy a gift to thank my benefactor." She opened the curtain of the car and told the coachman, please go to the shoemaker's shop first. P.S. Babies, there will be updates later, okay? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The favorite of the Nongmen group, the female supporting role is a full-level boss. Author, Ruan Meng Baobao. Chapter 63. Gu Huizi's gaze moved and he stared at Suwan with deep eyes, as if he wanted to see through her whole body. I guess Suwan knew that he was the one who ordered someone to do it. But her face was very calm, nothing strange at all. Are you testing him? Gu Huizi casually placed his fingers on his knees, tapped them a few times, and said with a frown, really? Which benefactor helped me? A slight dimple appeared on Suwan's cheeks, and her clear eyes became brighter. The corners of his mouth turned up slightly and he said, you don't even recognize me even if I tell you. Gu Huizi raised his eyebrows slightly and smiled to himself, you are right, I am a farmer and I really don't recognize many people. Suwan was stunned for a moment, leaning against the car wall and looking askance. Gu Huizi's eyebrows were warm and his expression was casual, showing a leisurely look. It seemed like it was just a casual remark. The carriage happened to stop, and Suwan didn't bother to think about whether his words had any other meaning. Suwan jumped off the carriage and went directly to the shoemaker's shop. Gu Huizi raised the curtain slightly, staring at Suwan standing in front of the counter and gesturing with the shopkeeper with his dark eyes. She seemed to be talking very speculatively, and she showed a bright smile. He was silent for a while, then got off the carriage and entered the shop. Suwan happened to choose a dozen pairs of cloth shoes. Gu Huizi took a quick glance and found that the shoes were of different sizes. A thought suddenly came to my mind. Suwan wasn't testing him, but someone was pretending to claim his credit. Gu Huizi's mood was not relieved, but his face became increasingly cold and gloomy. He couldn't explain why this happened. After Suwan paid the money, she picked up the big cloth bundle. She turned around and saw Gu Huizi with a stern face, as if someone owed him 25,800,000 yuan. She glanced at the big cloth bundle on her shoulder and thought that Gu Huizi was looking at her. Spend money randomly and feel unhappy. This is money I earned myself. It didn't cost you any money. As soon as he said these words, when he met Gu Huizi's eyes as cold as a cold knife, he knew that his mood seemed to be getting worse. Suwan didn't have time to figure out where she said something wrong. Gu Huizi turned around and left, getting on the carriage. Suwan. Spend his money being angry. Don't spend his money to lose face. Isn't this man too uncertain? Su got into the carriage at night, took off the baggage on his shoulders, dug out a pair of shoes, made sure they were the size he wore, and threw them into his arms with a shameful face. Gu Huizi's eyelashes trembled, and he slowly opened his eyes, looking at Suwan with dark eyes. Suwan sneered and turned away from him. Who doesn't have a temper? Beijing, East Palace. Su Mixu was sitting in the magnificent bedroom with carved beams and painted beams. She was wearing a rare red skirt, which made her look extremely beautiful. The brilliance from her clear eyes was very different from her usual pure and delicate appearance, and even more so. It looks noble and compelling. She was twisting needle and thread in her hand and making a bottom coat for the prince. There were hurried footsteps outside the palace. Su Mixu raised her eyes and saw Qing Huan coming in from the outside and handing her a letter. Princess, there is a letter from Xinghua village. Su Mixu frowned. Did Zhang succeed so quickly? Opening the letter neatly, Su Mixu frowned even more when she saw the contents inside. Zai town is not considered wealthy in the Great Zhou Kingdom. The most famous one is Zai Academy. Other than that, there are no outstanding heroes, let alone miracle doctors. If there really is a miracle doctor in Zai town, why is he so unknown? At least in the more than 10 years she has been in Zai Town, she has never heard of any miracle doctor. Su Mingxiu didn't care and burned the letter, thinking that Zhang wanted to take advantage of her. Qing Huan was very discerning. Seeing that Su Mingxiu looked unhappy, he did not offend her and started another conversation. The prince is at Wanfeng Hall. Will you go over and have dinner with His Highness now? Let's go. Seeing that it was getting late, Su Mingxiu folded the half-sewn clothes, put them in a sewing basket, and took the maid to Wanfeng Hall. The maids and chamberlains all saluted. Su Mingxiu walked to the door and heard the prince's voice coming from inside. Dr. Lu said that a miracle doctor had appeared in Zai Town and could cure Dingyuan marquee poison. The favorite of the Nongmen group, the female supporting role is a full-level boss. Author, Ruan Meng Baobao. Chapter 64. Su Mingxiu was surprised. Is there really a miracle doctor in Zai Town? The second thought came to him instantly. Who did the prince send to ask for the miracle doctor? Before she could figure it out, the voice of the chamberlain rang out, Your Highness, this is absolutely true. Dr. Lu said that the deputy general had no reaction, only hung his breath, and was revived by the miracle doctor. Do you think you need to send someone there? Inviting a miracle doctor to come to Beijing. There was silence in the palace for a moment, and the prince muttered, I will go in person. Su Mingxiu's expression suddenly changed, her fingernails dug into her palms tightly, and she almost lost her composure. Did the prince really go to Zai Town in person to seek a miracle doctor for his father? Thinking that Su Wan was in Zai Town, a dark light flashed in her eyes. Princess, the chamberlain came out of the palace, and when he saw Su Mingxiu, he bowed respectfully and said, Your Highness has good news for you. Su Mingxiu raised her head, a gentle smile appeared on her beautiful face, nodded slightly, and entered the hall dignifiedly. Right above the middle of the main hall are engraved the words Dragon Flying and Phoenix Dancing. Wanfeng Hall. Su Wan's late. Ji Wufeng's Maple. When Su Mingxiu first entered the palace, she heard someone say that Wanfeng Hall was the prince's bedroom and the place where he and his concubine would live together in the future, so the prince named it after two people. It's a pity that Su Wan married a poor scholar and she entered the East Palace. The name of Wanfeng Tang has not been changed. This is still the prince's palace, but the princess does not live here. Her palace is in another place. Only Su Mingxiu would hate Su Wan. These words reminded her all the time that the prince didn't love her and she stole this marriage. But before that, it was clearly the prince who nodded in agreement. Princess, Qing Huan called. Su Mingxiu came back to her senses, calmed down her emotions, raised the corners of her lips slightly, showed a just right smile, and walked into the side hall. Ji Wufeng was leaning on the soft couch, holding a letter with his long fingers. The sunlight flooded in from the window behind him, illuminating his whole body, making him look handsome and extraordinary. Your Highness, Su Mingxiu bowed Ying, looking at him with a pair of eyes as soft as water. Will you serve dinner now? It's up to you. Ji Wufeng didn't even raise his eyes. Su Mingxiu bit her lip and said tentatively, Your Highness, my concubine's former aunt sent a letter from Xinghua village, saying that a miracle doctor has appeared in Zai Town. I want to go and invite him in person to show my filial piety for my father. Did you hear the conversation between me and Li Hai? Ji Wufeng looked at him with cold and sharp eyes, a pair of extremely deep eyes, which made him even more frightening under the terrifying cold aura exuding from his body. No, I didn't, Su Mingxiu denied it. She wanted to take out the letter to prove it. She put her fingers on her sleeves and suddenly remembered that she had burned the letter. Her face was slightly pale, and her eyes were red with anxiety. I came to tell His Highness the good news, and overheard the conversation between you and Li Hai at the door. Ji Wufeng's slightly raised lips revealed sarcasm. Su Mingxiu's heart froze, and she explained with a chill in her heart, I want to ask the miracle doctor in person. Your Highness is the crown prince of a country and wants to stay in the capital to share the emperor's worries. Ji Wufeng didn't even look at her, his eyes fell on the words Zai Town, and he said in a cold tone, "It's not your turn to make the decision on the affairs of this palace." He called out, "Li Qing, send the crown princess off, go back." Su Mingxiu looked at Ji Wuifeng's cold face in disbelief, never expecting that he would not give her face like this. Li Qing came in from outside. Su Mingxiu bit her lip with her teeth and straightened her back before going out without waiting for anyone's invitation. Standing in the sunshine, Su Mingxiu turned around and looked at the shining golden characters Wan Feng Tang. There seemed to be dark fire dancing in her eyes, and she wished she could burn them to ashes. She absolutely cannot let the prince go to Zai Town. The favorite of the Nongmen group, the female supporting role is a full-level boss. Author, Ruan Meng Baobao. Chapter 65. Su Mingxiu planned to go to the emperor, but then she thought that the emperor was obsessed with alchemy and left government affairs to the regent. Her successful marriage to the prince was largely due to the regent. Su Mingxiu believed her statement that she was fulfilling her filial piety for Marquis Dingyuan, so she went to Zai Town to ask for a miracle doctor and went to the capital to detoxify Sujihong. He also hinted that the regent Suwan was in Zai Town, and the regent would definitely trip up Ji Wuifeng and not allow him to leave the capital. Zhang and Song Dalin were locked in the back room, plotting. "Dalin, is the person you hired reliable? Is it foolproof?" From the bottom of her heart, Zhang believed that Suwan was a wicked person, and was afraid that she would be lucky enough to escape this disaster again. Song Dalin patted his chest, "Mom, don't worry, I will be responsible for this matter, so Suwan will not be able to escape the disaster." Zhang trusted Song Dalin and repeatedly told him, "You must see Suwan break both legs before this can be done. From now on, you will be the official." Zhang rubbed her hands excitedly, and someone called her outside the house. Shouted impatiently with a loud voice, "If you keep shouting like this all day long, why are you urging me to die?" Zhang said fiercely and went out with a straight face. Song Dalin's heart was burning and he couldn't wait to go out and join the group he invited. As soon as she walked out of the room, Mrs. Hu grabbed her and said, "Ms. Sir, we have run out of firewood at home and there is no firewood for dinner. How many firewood can you go to the mountain to chop down?" Song Dalin's face dropped, and he said unhappily, "You can't do this little thing yourself? What's the point of marrying you?" He stretched out his hand to push Mrs. Hu away, looked at the sallow-faced Mrs. Hu, and said with disgust, "Go aside, don't delay my business. When he becomes an official, he will immediately divorce this yellow-faced woman." Mrs. Hu was anxious. Suwan didn't listen to her advice and went to the town. He hadn't come back at this hour. If she let Song Dalin go, Suwan might be in trouble. "Ms. Sir, you can't go." Mr. Hu grabbed Song Dalin's sleeve, but Mr. Zhang, who came in, smacked his arm away and scolded him with a black face, "You went to the mountain to chop a bundle of firewood, but you didn't come back before the sun went down. No food allowed tonight." Mrs. Hu covered the back of her hand that was burning with pain, tears welling up in her eyes, and watched helplessly as Song Dalin left. Zhang narrowed his eyes and saw some clues. "Aren't you going to cheat on us behind our backs?" "No, no, I didn't." The blood on Hu's face was gone, her thin body could not suppress the trembling, and she timidly carried the hatchet up the mountain. Zhang stared at Hu's back, always feeling that something was wrong with this girl. "Otherwise, why would you feel guilty?" Zhang snorted coldly and spat, "You bitch, you dare to turn your elbows outward, let's see if I don't skin her." Song Dalin came to the agreed place. This is a narrow mountain road and a big winding road. At the corner, they laid out a few iron wires on the road and buried a dozen pointed upward nails in the road. When the carriage was driving, nails were driven into the horse's hooves. When the horse went crazy, it was tripped by the wire and fell to its knees. The people in the carriage were thrown out. The people invited by Song Dalin would rush out and beat Suwan with wooden sticks. Legs. Song Dalin broke into a cold sweat when he didn't see the people he had agreed to arrange. He was afraid that it would be too late when they came to arrange the arrangements. Huh! Have the wires and nails been laid out on the road? A dark shadow was cast in front of his eyes. Song Dalin raised his head in confusion, and saw two figures appearing silently in front of him. His heart jumped in fright. Before he could speak, he saw two people grinning at him, and his eyesight went dark. A sack was placed over his head. Song Dalin fell to the ground after being kicked in the kneecap. Song Dalin suffered severe pain in his legs, his kneecaps were shattered, and he screamed. Mo Chen swung the stick in his hand and hit Song Dalin on the neck. Song Dalin twitched and made no sound again. Moun took off the sack and checked his breathing to make sure that the person was not dead. He picked it up and threw it at the foot of the hillside. There were already several people lying there, and they were obviously the people Song Dalin had found. Master summoned us back from the capital urgently just to deal with these noobs. Mo Chen threw the stick away and muttered, "How can you kill a chicken with a sledgehammer? Isn't it overkill?" Moun frowned. When his master left the capital, in order to avoid exposing his identity and causing unnecessary trouble, he didn't take anyone with him, and he didn't even ask about the affairs in the capital. To summon them suddenly means something is about to happen. At this time, the sound of horse hooves sounded in the quiet mountain road. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The favorite of the Nongmen group, the female supporting role is a full-level boss. Author, Ruan Meng Baobao. Chapter 66. The two people neatly handled the wires and nails, disappeared into the night, and called 3 times like partridges. In the carriage, Gu Huizi slowly opened his eyes, heard the sound of partridges, and raised his hand to press his forehead. June is the breeding season for partridges, and their cries at night did not arouse Suwan and Gu's mother's suspicion. Gu Huizi looked at Suwan. She had a sullen expression on her face, with a "don't mess with me" expression. He lowered his eyes, a pair of cloth shoes neatly placed next to him, and his mood was a little complicated. Although the credit was falsely claimed, Suwan gave him a pair of shoes as a thank you gift. Thinking about it this way, I felt a little happier. Mother Gu nudged Gu Huizi with her elbow, asking him to wink and coax her daughter-in-law. Gu Huizi remained silent. The carriage stopped in front of Gu's house. Suwan took the lead to get out of the carriage with her baggage in her arms. Gu's mother glared at Gu Hui with a straight face. Wan Wan has a good temper and doesn't get angry easily. She is so busy every day that she doesn't touch the ground. It's better for you to find every opportunity to make her angry. If you are a man, you have to let her go. My own wife. Gu Huizi. Gu's mother gave him a big look, jumped off the carriage and went back to the house. Gu Huizi got off the carriage, entered the courtyard gate, and suddenly stopped. In the main room, Gu Beizu and Gu Jingyun smiled brightly and circled around Suwan. An oil lamp on the table emits soft light, warm and quiet. Gu Beizu was carrying a small cloth bag on her body. She couldn't put it down and touched the smooth fabric. Her eyes were crooked and her smile was sweet. Sister-in-law, is this the cloth bag you gave me? It's very beautiful. I'll carry it when I go to the market in the future. This is your school bag. Then you and Jingyun will study together. Suwan touched her head. Gu Beizu was stunned. Can she study? The eldest brother sent them to a private school before, but she refused to go because she was afraid of wasting money. It has always been a regret in my heart. I didn't expect my sister-in-law to send her to school. Gu Jingyun had an old school bag and glanced at Gu Beizu's new school bag. He really wanted the school bag made by his sister-in-law. He said gloomily, Zai Academy will have exams in 3 days. Suwan pinched his cheek and said, if you pass the exam, I have a gift for you. When Gu Jingyun heard the gift, his eyes lit up, and he immediately stopped envying Gu Bei's new skull bag. He clenched his fists and boasted, "Sister-in-law, I will definitely come first in the exam." "Okay, I'll wait." Suwon touched his little head. There were footsteps behind me. "Brother," the two little guys shouted crisply. Suwon went into her room without even looking at Gu Huizi, took her clothes and took a shower. Gu Huizi stared at her slender back and sighed softly in his heart. Helplessness flashed across his cold eyes. He put the new shoes back into the house, went to the yard to find a piece of peach wood, took out the tools and carved a plum blossom peachwood hairpin by himself, and wrapped it with a handkerchief. He came to the door of Suwon's room and pushed the door gently. The door opened but was not bolted. He walked in gently and stood beside the bed. The hazy moonlight slanted on Suwon. Her delicate and beautiful face looked quiet and gentle, making people feel soft just by looking at her. Gu Huizi put the hairpin next to the pillow and saw that she was bitten by a mosquito. He unconsciously patted her cheek, scratched it a few times, turned over, and slept soundly. The corners of his lips unconsciously curved slightly, and he left her house, found dry mugwort, lit it, and placed it at the foot of Suwon's bed to repel mosquitoes. Suwon, who was sleeping soundly, smelled the strong aroma of mugwort leaves. Her eyelids moved, and she could only open a crack with difficulty. She vaguely saw a blurry figure, and fell into a dream again. "Suwon! You bitch! Get out of here!" Early in the morning, the sound of Jiang's ghost crying and wolf howling sounded at the door of Gu's house. The favorite of the Nongmen group, the female supporting role is a full-level boss. Author, Ruan Meng Baobao. Chapter 67. Gu's mother was feeding bran to the chickens. When she heard Jiang's howl, she frowned, put the chicken food on the chicken shed, and quickly opened the courtyard door. She opened her mouth and cursed angrily, "Where did the mad dog come from, barking at the door so early in the morning?" Jiang's body was sloppy and wrinkled, with patches of mud on it, her hair was disheveled, her eyes were red from crying, and the hatred in her eyes seemed to turn into reality, and she would kill everyone in the Gu family to avenge Song Dalan. Mother Gu was startled and her heart palpitated. She warned with a dark face, "Ms. Jiang, don't think that my family is easy to bully. There's nothing I can't do if you make me anxious. You crippled my eldest son and threatened to kill me too. Lu Gaixiang, do you think Bashang Suwan has strong wings and can fly into the sky? I can't do anything to you. I, Zhang Honglian, also have a backer. My niece, it's the crown princess. Suwan is not even worthy of carrying her shoes." Zhang thought of Song Dalan's miserable situation and completely forgot about the fear of being choked by Gu's mother. She lost all reason and rushed to fight against Gu's mother. "Come on. Kill me. If you don't kill me today, I'll let Shuer chop off your family's heads immediately." Gu's mother had a round waist and thick arms, and was a head taller than Zhang. She easily grabbed Jiang's hand, pinched the back of her neck, and dragged Zhang against the wall. "Ah!" Zhang screamed. Tianling Gai seemed to be knocked open, and he was dizzy. Gu's mother pushed the person down on the chicken excrement. Jiang's mouth was full of shit and she was so disgusted. She struggled hard to break free from Gu's mother's hand, held her chest and retched, made a few noises, grabbed her clothes and rubbed it on her mouth hard, her eyes almost to breathe out fire. She fell to the ground and opened her mouth to curse. Gu's mother sneered, picked up the shovel next to her, and was about to scoop up the chicken shit and throw it on her face. Mrs. Zhang was so frightened that she crawled out of the yard and cried, "Is there any more justice? Suwan beat my husband's legs to pieces. I'm here to seek justice. Lu Gaixiang wants to beat me to death. You guys, please give us a review." Ah! Jiang's back was hit by a shovel, and she jumped up and ran away. She turned around and saw Gu's mother with a fierce look on her face, holding the shovel and slapping her on the head. Her face turned pale and she broke into a cold sweat. While running for her life, She shouted, "Crazy! Lu Gaixiang, you crazy woman! If you don't beat me to death today." Mother Gu gritted her teeth and accepted her words, "I'm waiting for you to tell the crown princess to chop off the heads of our family." Zhang was so angry that she almost gritted her teeth. Gu's mother was fierce and taller than her. Zhang couldn't get any advantage from her. If she continued to pester her, she would suffer a lot. But Song Dalan's suffering cannot be forgotten in vain. Zhang changed direction and ran towards Gu clan leader's house. There are two major surnames in Xinghua village, one is Song and the other is Gu. The Gu family first took root in Xinghua village and formed a clan. Even if the people of the Song family later moved here to take root and spread their branches, their influence was far less than that of the Gu family. But the Song family had a high official, so they gained prestige, and the title of village chief fell on the Song family. However, regarding issues such as the livelihood of the clan members, the right to speak is far less than that of the clan. If the Zhang family wants to attack the Gu family, the head of the Gu family must come forward. Patriarch Gu is 70 years old and is sitting in the yard teaching his great-grandson how to read. Zhang ran in a hurry, with blood dripping from the red and swollen patch on his forehead. He gasped and cried, "Clan leader, you have to make the decision for my eldest son." His legs were broken by Suwan and he was thrown down the hillside. We just found them this morning. Lu Gaixiang is an accomplice, they are vicious, you have to ask the family law to whip them 50 times and drive them out of Xinghua village. The favorite of the Nongmen group, the female supporting role is a full-level boss. Author, Ruan Meng Baobao. Chapter 68. Seeing Mr. Zhang crying with snot and tears, Patriarch Gu furrowed his grey eyebrows, put down his great-grandson in his arms, touched his head, and signaled his great-grandson to go back to the house. The child ran back to the house. Patriarch Gu's cloudy eyes were very wise. He stared at Zhang and asked, "How did the young lady of the Gu family and Lu Gaixiang cripple Song Dalan's legs? Why did they attack Song Dalan for no reason?" Zhang made nonsense, "My niece is engaged to Gu Huizi. Because Suwan's character is bad, the royal family wants to terminate the engagement. The Ho family has no choice but to marry my niece to the prince and let Suwan take my niece's place. Marrying Gu Huizi. Suwan is upset, and Lu Gaixiang also resents my niece for not being honest. They can't take revenge on my niece, and they attack my elder man because they have a grudge against me. She hated the Gu family to death. Song Dalan almost became an official, but she was the old official's wife. Now she is a useless person, unable to make money, paralyzed in bed, and has to be taken care of. Although Patriarch Gu is old, he is not confused. Suwan had been married for more than a month and had not done anything harmful to the village. At most, she was not good to the Gu family. But no one can accept a wealthy young lady marrying a peasant. What's more, Suwan has changed completely during these days and is committed to living a good life. However, the Song family is restless and always looking for trouble for the Gu family. Patriarch Gu said slowly, "It's empty talk. Can you provide evidence to prove that it was the young lady of the Gu family who crippled Song Dalan?" Zhang was choked. Where can she find any evidence? Song Dalan is still unconscious. Yesterday, he just went to clean up what happened to Suwan. No need to think that it was Suwan who did it. Patriarch Gu, I am the village chief's wife, how can I be a slanderer with red lips and white teeth? Someone identified her as Suwan. If you don't believe me, go interrogate Suwan. I will send people to find witnesses. Zhang thought of the few people Song Dalan hired. Individuals can bribe them with money to accuse Suwan and Lu Gaixiang of beating the disabled Song Dalan. Patriarch Gu's wrinkled face was solemn, if you slander the little lady of the Gu family, you will be punished for being immoral, 50 lashes, and kneeling in the ancestral hall. Jiang's face changed, but at this point, she couldn't back down. She gritted her teeth and got up and took the Gu clan leader back home. Suwon got dressed and came out. Zhang had left and Gu's mother came in carrying a shovel. Wan, are you bothering me? Mother Gu threw the shovel into the corner and walked towards Suwon with a kind smile on her face. It's still early now. You go to sleep for a while, and I'll make breakfast wake you up. I've slept well. Suwon frowned and looked at the empty courtyard door. Zhang came to the door. What happened? Mentioning the Zhang family, Gu's mother became angry. She spat, who knows why she is crazy? She caught people biting her at home so early in the morning. Song Dalan's legs were broken last night. What does it have to do with us? She thinks we are easy to bully. Put the shit basin on our heads. A thought flashed through Suwon's mind and she asked, did anyone sell land in our village yesterday? Gu's mother was confused. No, what's wrong? Do you want to buy land? Suwon shook her head. Why did Mr. Hu lie to her? Prevent her from going to town, or even ask her to return to the village as soon as possible. She thought that something happened to Song Dalan last night, and Zhang insisted that she was the murderer, and an idea gradually formed in her mind. Song Dalan wanted to take action against her, and MRS Hu knew about this plan. MRS Hu specially came to inform her, hoping that she would avoid this disaster. She didn't take Hu's words to heart and didn't meet Song Dalan along the way. Instead, Song Dalan had his legs disabled. Who did this? Chi Guang? At this time, Zhang and Patriarch Gu hurriedly walked in, followed by many neighbors who came to watch the excitement. Jiang's eyes were sharp and he said coldly, Suwon, Lu Gaixiang, I've invited the clan leader here, you can't deny it. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The favorite of the Nongmen group, the female supporting role is a full-level boss. Author, Ruan Meng Baobao. Chapter 69. Patriarch Gu was wearing a grey gown, with frosty white hair and beard, and he was energetic. He looked very majestic as he stood there. He put one hand on his back and leaned on a crutch with the other. Lu Gaixiang, did you and MRS Gu break Song Dalan's leg? Patriarch, I have a hot temper. I have never done such a harmful thing. No matter how aggressive and domineering Gu's mother was, she respected Patriarch Gu from the bottom of her heart. She was afraid that he would believe Jiang's words, so she hurriedly explained, don't listen to Jiang's nonsense. She has a grudge against me and is so evil that we have never done this before. We are not afraid of you sending someone to investigate. Patriarch Gu has a lot of friends, but Gu's mother is a straight-tempered person who can't hide anything, it's all written on her face. Gu's mother didn't know about Song Dalan's affairs. When MRS Zhang saw that Chief Gu was silent, she became anxious. Both families were surnamed Gu, and she was afraid that he would favor Gu's mother. Patriarch Gu spoke, MS Zhang, where is your witness? I'll call the witnesses over right now. Zhang turned around and saw Song Manfu leading the way. Two young men used the door panel to lift Song Dalan over. Da Lang, MRS Zhang quickly ran over and saw Song Dalan waking up. Tears fell down her face and she asked with a choked voice, Da Lang, tell me, did Suwon and Lu Gaixiang hurt you? Song Dalan didn't see who it was clearly, and he didn't have any grudge against anyone. Apart from Suwon, he couldn't think of anyone else. She must have known the news in advance and acted first. Da Lang, the clan leader is here, just say it and he will make the decision for you. Only then did Zhang realize that there were two unfamiliar people coming with Dalan's song. She was overjoyed and guessed the identities of the two people. She suppressed her excitement and asked Song Dalan, are these witnesses? Song Dalan's face was pale and he stared at Suwon with vicious eyes. They saw the perpetrator. Zhang couldn't help but said to Patriarch Gu, our witnesses are here, they saw the murderer. She shouted to the two men again, if you don't come over yet, Tell Patriarch Gu carefully, is it right, these two bitches made my son crippled. Jiang's fingers moved between Suwan and Gu's mother. The two men were tall and thin, with wounds scratched by thorns on their faces, giving them a fierce look. They stared at Suwan with bulging eyes, and there was still a dull pain in the back of their necks. Thinking of what happened last night, the two brothers felt angry. He touched his cheek with his tongue, trying to drag Suwan into the water. Suddenly, a chill ran down their spines, and they turned their heads and looked back. Moun stood at the entrance of the courtyard, his eyes as cold as sharp knives, which made people feel awe-inspiring. The fear dominated by pain made them shudder, nipping any evil thoughts in their bud. Did you see Mrs. Gu and Lu Gaixiang committing murder? Patriarch Gu asked with a majestic look. No, that's not it. The two men put away all the ferocity and cunning in their eyes, and took out a money bag from their sleeves. We were bribed by Song Dalan to ambush at the foot of Qingfen Mountain to break Suwan's legs. We followed Song Dalan's instructions according to the request. Nails and wires were buried on the road. He didn't see clearly. The wires tripped him and he knelt on the nails. He rolled in pain and rolled down the hillside. Only when we went to retrieve him did we find his body. The kneecap was broken and I didn't dare to stay, so I left him and ran away. Yes, that's it. Song Dalan sent someone to come to us again. We thought he was here to refund the money. Who knew he wanted us brothers to make perjury and frame Suwan for hurting his leg? The expressions of Zhang and Song Dalan suddenly changed. The author has something to say. Darlings, see you tomorrow, okay? The favorite of the Nongmen group, the female supporting role is a full-level boss. Author, Ruan Meng Baobao. Chapter 70. What are you talking about? Zhang jumped up and cursed, you two are so wicked. You said before that you saw Suwan and Lu Gaixiang hurt my son with your own eyes. Now you have gone back on your word and accused us of buying a murderer to hurt Suwan. She grabbed one of them's sleeves arrogantly, did someone bribe you? The man pushed Zhang away suddenly, that's nonsense, the only one who bribed us is your son. Fart. My son has no grievances against Suwan, so why did he bribe you to break her legs? Do you think Suwan bribed you? Zhang Si sat down on the ground, crying and crying. God doesn't care, our family is being bullied for being honest. They are trying to force us to death. Song Dalan's fingers clenched the fabric of his clothes tightly, never expecting that these two people would suddenly switch sides. Suwan must have bribed them in advance. Can't admit it? Apart from the money given out, these two people had no conclusive evidence. Song Dalan narrowed his eyes and threatened, you are slandering me as an accomplice to hurt Suwan. You are also an accomplice. You cannot wash away the charges. Besides, if you are upright, you are not afraid of a slanted shadow. If you don't tell the truth, we will all go to the government office together. These two people were originally extremely vicious people with dirty hands and feet. Song Dalan was sure that these two people did not dare to go to the government office. Unexpectedly, the two men took out a note from their sleeves. Song Dalan, this is the note you wrote when you bribed us to murder Suwan. Give us 5 taels of silver first, and then give us another 5 taels after the incident is completed. There is also something on it, your signature, your fingerprint. Exactly. We can't unjustly accuse innocent people just because we are confused and to protect ourselves. If you want to go to the government office, go to the government office and see if the official arrests us two brothers or locks you up. The two people looked calm, fearless, and arrogant. An uninformed person would think that they were righteous people. Song Dalan's face turned green and red for a while, and his face became distorted. Zhang was shocked when he saw the written evidence in their hands. Patriarch, please send them to the government office. Gu Huizi coughed a few times and came out of the house. The sun shone on his slim figure, looking at the clear breeze and bright moon, but there was no expression on his face. Who? Let the official decide whether it is right or wrong. Suwon curled her lips and said, yes, just press your fingerprints. Everyone's fingerprints are different. You can ask the official to ask Song Dalin to press another fingerprint next to the document for comparison. Gu Huizi raised his eyelids slightly and looked coldly at Song Dalin, who was standing aside. His face was pale and his lips were trembling slightly. He seemed to be trying his best to control the fear in his heart, and the strings in his mind were tightening and were about to break. A very faint smile passed over his lips. The handwriting can also be compared. Gu Huizi gave him a look. Patriarch Gu asked 2 young men in the village to carry Song Dalin to the officials. Boom! The string broke, and Song Dalin's reason collapsed before he could say anything. Zhang rushed over, opened her hands to block Song Dalin, and shouted, "What are you doing? Even if Dalin pays for a murderer to break Suwon's legs, isn't she a good person? Why are you arresting him? They are all ordinary people. Although Su Mingxiu is the crown prince, Su Mingxiu is not close to her. She has not seen her much when they were in Xinghua village, and she has not been able to see her since they came to Beijing. She always talks about Su Mingxiu and threatens others. That kind of status as a master is too far away for her. Instead, it was the visible magistrate who made her fear from the bottom of her heart." Zhang knew that Song Dalin had really bought the murder, and after entering the government office, he was afraid that he would not be able to get out. These 2 thugs are nothing but flesh and blood, and Zhang does not dare to confront them head-on. Song Manfu didn't have time to cover Jiang's mouth. He was so angry that he almost had a heart attack and was almost fooled to death by Zhang. Gu Huizi and Suwon were clearly talking. Sure enough, Gu Huizi bowed to Patriarch Gu smoothly. Zhang admitted that he paid for the murder of Wan Wan. Please make the decision and give us justice. The author has something to say. Babies, there is another update. We will go at almost 2 o'clock. Go to bed early. Good night. Warm reminder, if you find that clicking the next page will force you to jump to other websites, please use the chapter error or contact us at the bottom to inform us. We will handle it as soon as possible. Thank you for your understanding.